So, we left, packing only what we needed, and drove 120 miles to my friend Dan's house. I've known him since Afghanistan, and I was one of the only people that got along with him, and his assholeish nature. In turn, he was the kind of man you can count on in a bind. This definitely qualified. He had my back in firefights, and I know he would do it again in a heartbeat if needed. Before I left home, I copied the Vicarious folder to my Galaxy Note to read on the way, since my wife was a control freak and just had to drive everywhere we went together. Knowing this, I figured I'd have time to delve more into it. So on the road, I opened the next file, titled Mommy. The email came in right on time. Afraid to death to open it, I knew that if I didn't, he'd cut something off. The thought of seeing what I was about to see is something I can't describe in words. I put my mom to death, and I was being shown the entire thing by a sick fuck who was punishing me for all the things I've done wrong in my life. Did I deserve all of this? Is there hope for me at all? Will he stop, ever? The sound of the email chimed in my ear again. I double-clicked the email entitled Mommy. The video started at a scene in my parents' living room. All the lights were off, and you can see someone lying on the couch, probably my dad, all covered up in one of my mom's Afghans. The camera moves to the back of the couch, and I get a real close to the side of my dad's face. I can hear through the headset the voice of the dark man, and my father's labored breathing. "Soon, Daddy, soon." Sick bastard. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I can hear the heart monitor from across the room near the cycle's workbench chirping away as the dark man slowly went up the stairs to my mom's room. I wanted to scream out to her, and knew that she wouldn't hear me, but I did it anyway. Like a cornered dog, I whined and whined. She too was lying there peacefully, with her dark hair tousled over her face, and I just wanted to run up and hug her, tell her or warn her somehow, "Mom, run, there's a guy with a knife that wants to kill you." He put his grubby hand over her mouth, waking her at the same time. She looked right into the camera, and at that moment, I could have traded with her, and died instead. Her fear was so emblazoned on her face, I felt it through the screen. Then I heard him again, through the camera in a hushed tone, speaking to my mom, almost comforting. "Your son chose you, instead of himself. You will die because he gave you to me in his place." I cried out. He held up his stiletto and ejected the blade near her eye, showing her the instrument of her demise. It extended with that familiar click that everyone knows well. Her muffled cry was loud in my ears. He put the tip of the blade to her neck, slowly and softly drew it down her chest, to her heart. I can see the indentation from the knife touching her fucking skin. And, ever so delicately, he stuck the blade into her. Halfway at first, then slowly down to the handle. He left it in, twisting it some, then held the camera close to her eyes. I watched the blood bubble up her throat until she expired. It was only a few seconds, then the camera clicked off. But before it did, I heard the dark man again. "Let's go check on Dad." So I'm sitting here now waiting for the time to run out, until he gets back from my family home and asks for another name, another innocent. I don't think I can oblige him anymore. This will be my last entry. I just have to know that he won't hurt anyone else if I choose to give him my life. I have a place in hell waiting for me. Dear fucking God. I had to put my phone down for a minute and light a cigarette. I had quit several months back, and my wife's still a smoker, so I bummed one off of her. Recapping the entry as best I could, I told in summary what it said. I tried not to give all the details, and she seemed like she didn't believe a word. Wendy wasn't necessarily always a skeptic, but this was starting to get really scary, and her negativity didn't help things. Maybe none of this is true, but there were too many coincidences involved, in my opinion, for this just to be the work of a deranged writer. I let her naysay as much as she wanted. We were calling the police when we got there no matter what, so I opened the next file. God help me. File name, Dad. I can't even begin to describe the horror I know now, and if this gets out, please understand I was forced to do all of this. I am a prisoner to a madman, sick in every single way. Pray for me. Pray for my quick death. I passed out shortly after I witnessed my mother's murder. When I came to, my captor was already back, but he had someone with him. A man, strapped to another bed like mine across the room, facing me. The room was dark, so it was hard to see, but after a few blinks, I realized it immediately. My dad, still alive. "What are you gonna do, you sick motherfucker? Leave him alone. Just take me. I want to die now, bastard. Leave him be," I cried hoarsely. "Oh no, he's not gonna be your scapegoat. You are a part of this, and it's time to accept your punishment. I know you don't care. I know you really, deep down, don't give a fuck about anything but yourself. If you did, your little boy would still be alive. I gave you a chance. You blew it. Then you chose mommy. When will your selfishness end, Richie?" The dark man said as he approached my dad. He had a syringe in his hand. Then he plunged it into my dad's neck. His eyes flickered, then his head went limp. I screamed as loud as I could, but to no avail. The dark man went to the workbench, grabbed the saw he'd used on my hand, the blood still adorning it. "See, I'll show you," he said as he put the blade to my other wrist and slowly drew it across my skin. I could feel the serrated teeth rip into me, and it wasn't long before I could hear the sound of blood drip into the concrete floor. I just couldn't do it. "Please, no." He chuckled, and then suddenly went back to my dad, reaching underneath the bed frame. He swiveled the bed into a horizontal position, then went back to the bench and clicked on the burner, the one he used to cook my fucking hand. Saucer in hand, he went back to Dad, then looked over to me. "Don't worry, he's just asleep. We'll wake him when we're all done." I could smell the burner heating up. I knew what was next. Putting the saw to a better part of my dad's thigh, he cut a clean piece right off the surface, lengthwise. Dad didn't even move. When he was done, he covered the wound with a blanket of some sort, then went to the bench and trimmed it to little pieces. "I know you must be hungry. You haven't eaten in quite a while," he said, too enthusiastically. "Fuck you." "You'll eat, or I'll go visit that pretty wife and bring her here too," he said quietly, almost laughing. Clearly he was enjoying this. Then he threw a piece of my father's thigh on the grill. For the next half hour he fed me, small bits mostly. He continued trimming until most of his legs were torn apart down to the bone. And the real fucked up thing is that he kept him alive, sedated, with a constant source of blood hung from an IV stand not unlike my own. Before he left, he wanted another name. I resisted him, told him I want death, that I'm broken and can't go on. So, like he promised me before, he took my feet, both of them. Then he said something I remembered when we brought the fucking computer. "All sales are final." That woman is in on all of this. I am crippled, my belly filled with my father's own flesh. I am a worm. I did end up giving him a name, the only name I can think of at the time, just after I had my feet amputated and cauterized. The name I was crying out, as if he could help me. My big brother Tommy. If he knew any of what happened, if he knew I condemned our family to death, he'd kill me just the same. Okay, at this point I did freak out. We didn't have long till we arrived at Dan's, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. I didn't tell Wendy about the dad file, knowing that she wouldn't be grossed out. I just kept quiet until at Dan's house. We got settled in at Dan's, and my wife went directly to phone the police. They dispatched 2 detectives to our location, and they showed up within an hour. The detectives introduced themselves as Agent John Coyle and Harold Jensen with the FBI. Coyle wore a long trench coat with a perfect G-Man black suit underneath. His hair was dark, and his eyes dark blue and intense. He wore a hat indicative of the 60s FBI man. Jensen wore the same, except his hair was reddish, and his face covered in freckles. They both shared a serious demeanor when they entered, and it gave my wife a bit of a start when they began immediately with their questions, before we could even sit down, in fact. "Mr. Welsh, how long have you been in possession of the desktop computer in question?" Jensen, the talkative one, asked directly. "A few days. We didn't know the documents until today, when we started it. Are we in danger, Agent Jensen?" I asked just as directly. I'm sure fear in my eyes was evident to both of them, so Jensen responded in kind. "You may be, Mr. Welsh. We have an ongoing investigation into these files already, he said, waving another man at the door at the same time. Several more came behind, all wearing FBI coats and firearms at their hips. This was real. They took the desktop and told us they would send a check in the mail for our financial loss over the evidence. Evidence? We were questioned for over an hour. Everything from what the lady looked like to where we bought it and when. But the main question that seemed to be several times, in several ways, did you read all the documents? Did you make any copies? I'm sure they'll find out that I did, but I denied it. And finally, did you know Richard Pendle? I remember why his name stuck out to me when I looked him up on the internet. He went to the same high school as I did. I actually knew him. His father taught English in our junior year. We weren't really friends as far as I remember, but he wasn't a bad kid. They must have already known that before they asked, so I didn't lie. I told them we went to my school, but we didn't really know each other. They seemed convinced and went on with their interrogation. I told them about the woman, and they expressed serious interest in her, especially when I mentioned her nasty-ass teeth. Many of the questions were about her, but we couldn't really help other than tell her what we knew. They told us her name was Cecilia Galladoon, that she was a person of interest in the investigation and is wanted for questioning regarding the disappearance of the Pendle family. Like Galladoon, the killer from the documents? I asked plainly. Quayle seemed to sharpen his eyes on mine when I said that, but Jensen replied, "Yes, we believe that he may be her husband, Tim Galladoon, and that they are working together somehow," Jensen said reluctantly. "Should I be worrying? This guy was a cop in writing. Have you cleared—" I was cut off by Jensen. "I can assure you that we will not have to worry about that. We have trusted men here. Everyone checks out." Quayle did none of the talking. In fact, he never said a word the entire time. Jensen seemed to be the lackey of sorts. When they finished with us, I heard the two of the FBI agents that were waiting for Quayle and Jensen talking amongst themselves. The first guy, is it the same guy from the case file? "Yeah, I think so." "Does he know we've been chasing this maniac for 60 years? "Enough of that." Poor fucker. Case? Poor fucker. We were promised police surveillance for the next few days while they investigated the computer, and were on the hunt for the woman we saw on our house corner, with the brown teeth. Promising they would let us know if anything came up, they left in a commotion. We were told to stay indoors for the remainder of our surveillance, and they would bring anything we needed. Dan, my friend, and Wendy, my wife, looked at me with the same thought. Is this really happening? So I'm hanging out with my buddy Dan and my wife, waiting for something, waiting for the feds to figure this all out. They cleared both Wendy and I from work for the next 2 weeks, with pay, so we're trying to look at this like a vacation of sorts. We have Jameson whiskey, plenty of ammo, and Dan even agreed to take first watch tonight, because we don't trust anyone with our lives. Thanks to all the great comments as well. I did give my wife a desert eagle to sleep with. Complacently doesn't kill. One more thing. I did finish reading all the files, and one of the documents near the bottom disturbs me to no end. I can't tell Wendy, and I think it's the real reason I have posted this for all of you to hear. The situation is so fucked up. At the bottom of the file list is my wife's name. I think she cheated on me with Richard Pendle, and I think she's next.